My boyfriend is a large piece of cutlery.
Welcome back to the short game. This is the game. Let me do that again.
Welcome back to the short game. This is the show where we talk about short games that you or your family members might play after having downloaded them from the internet or purchased them in a retail store.
Generally true. They're the kind of games that hopefully you would enjoy in an evening or a weekend. The kind of games that you can fit into your schedule. In fact, that's kind of the focus of our show, is fitting games into your life. I'm your host, Reagan, and I am joined once again, as always, by my bro host, Shane.
Bro host.
That is him right there. And also by fancy podcaster Nate Heininger.
Hello, everybody.
How are things, Nate?
Good. I'm sweaty. Real sweaty right now.
You remember how Reagan used to always ask us to describe ourselves at the start of the show? How sweaty are you, Nate?
Damp. Damp.
Ew.
Damp is a good word. Yeah.
I'm glad this isn't a video podcast.
Are you moist?
I'm definitely moist. I'm not moving right now, like from house to house, but I essentially am moving from within my own house to another part of my own house, from the basement to the upstairs.
Moving on up.
Yeah, my two roommates just moved out. So
What, did Mom move out?
Yeah, I know that's how it sounds. I'm going to fully describe it. Molly and I lived in the basement with two other roommates, and the two other roommates moved out.
No, let's clarify. You didn't live in the basement with two other roommates. You lived in the basement below two other roommates.
Fine point. The other roommates lived upstairs. We lived downstairs.
It's kind of a sweatshop situation.
And so we've been painting and carrying things, and I got a new TV today.
Ooh, how
so
big
that
is
was
it?
Fun. 43 inches.
Oh, that's a good size.
Yeah,
TVs have been getting
reasonable.
so huge.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can get so much TV for your money now.
Yeah, if you are you guys familiar with the wirecutter.com?
Oh my, yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So I followed their article for best $500 TV, and their best $500 TV was a 51-inch TV. And I don't know, my living room isn't that big. That's way too large for me. So I found they have the exact same model, the 43-inch, for $375. And I was like, I can't beat that. It took like a week and a half to get here, which was obnoxious, but you know, It is what it is. I haven't had a TV for like a week and a half, but I also don't have like a cable subscription or anything like that. I just use it for my PlayStation and Netflix and whatnot. So somehow I have survived.
You managed. FTL is on your laptop, so.
Well, that's all I do anyway. So
Got that Crystal Cruiser?
No, I've unlocked virtually every other ship but the Crystal Cruiser. So leave me alone, Shane.
Shane, how has your life been?
Oh, my life has been pretty good. I haven't talked much about work, but we're moving to a new location, and it's really driving me nuts. But other than that, things are good. I think we're all preparing for or undergoing moves right now.
Yeah, I'm about to be, this coming week, packing up the truck and moving to Beverly Hills, that is. Or actually Mountain View, California.
And you had that whole thing planned, didn't you?
What, that?
Your little joke, the little Beverly joke you just made.
No, that came right out of my pop cultural awareness. I don't plan this shit.
Yeah, I highly doubt that.
Are the Beverly Hillbillies still popular culture? I don't think so.
Ouch. Well, we are moving to Mountain View this coming week-ish, and that means that all of my stuff is currently going into boxes, and so I've had a difficult time playing games, but I did manage to finish Transistor this week, and it's something I've been really excited to talk about on the show. From the very first minute I booted up the game, I could tell it was going to be perfect to talk about on our show today. So really glad we get to get started with that. Does anybody have any games or other things that they want to chat about before we dig into Transistor?
Despite this having been E3 week, I have very little to talk about, so I cede the floor.
Yeah, the listeners may be a little confused because actually Shane and I just recorded the intro to the second part of our board game special last night. And
Give
first
our
off,
listeners a little credit. They know how audio recording works. They know it's not coming straight to them live when they hit play.
that's true, but we record largely out of sequence.
It's kind of like Memento in that way. You guys seen the movie Memento?
My favorite part about describing a podcast to somebody who has virtually no idea what it is when they ask, what time does it come on?
I've had that question a few times.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how we operate here at The Short Game. We record it whenever we damn well please.
We record it whenever Nate fucking finishes painting his house.
Hey now,
Yeah, that's
hey
fair.
now.
Y'all have waited
fair.
for me. I apologize.
We
Nate.
have.
I did have one thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's very brief because I don't have anything to like really follow up on it, but I did manage to snag an alpha key to Destiny.
What?
which
You
is
did?
Oh.
How did you manage
now,
this wizardry?
A buddy of mine had an extra, and I complained enough apparently in his general surroundings about not being a part of it, and he was like, "Hey, I've got an extra," and he gave it to me, and it finished downloading about an hour ago, but I got it on Saturday, but I haven't had a TV, so that has been the one downside to not having it. But so it started downloading about an hour ago, and I think it's finished. So I'll probably fire that up whenever we're done or fall asleep in a hot, sweaty mess.
Awesome. So we'll expect
One of the two.
a special report on the alpha of that game as soon as you've had a chance to play it.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It looks pretty cool.
I have a little bit of follow-up on our recently recorded episode about Apple Design Award winning games. One of my favorites of the games we discussed was Threes by Asher Vollmer, a really great indie developer, and he's recently unveiled the sort of prototype of his next game, which is called Close Castles. Polygon had a really good sort of profile of it and a good video, so I'll drop that into the show notes because that's probably the best way to get a sense of it. But it's actually not a mobile game, or at least he actually hasn't announced what platform it's going to be on, but he was showing it off playing with Xbox controllers on a computer.
He seems to be working with the Xbox, since I know Threes is coming out for Xbox.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I know that he said in the interview with Polygon that he wants it to be a console experience, but he doesn't yet know what platforms it might come out on, although he did seem to be kind of indicating platforms in the plural. It's a really, really simple, really cool little 4-player action game that reminds me a lot of a game that Shane and I played a lot called Horde. Shane, do you remember Horde?
I still love Horde, and I get anyone to play it with me that can. Have you seen Horde before, Nate?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
As a
to me.
lover of board games, I think you might like it. It's a game that I
It's on the
initially
PS3.
experienced on the PlayStation 3, but it's also on Steam and on, I'm sure, other platforms as well. And basically, Horde is a game where everyone plays a dragon, and it's kind
Good
of
start.
it's kind of like a Civ type resource management game, except in reverse. Like, the cities are building themselves all around you, and the farms are building themselves all around you, and it's up to you as the dragon to go and destroy all of those things.
You also carry off princesses.
Yeah, you steal princesses, and
Naturally.
you create a hoard of gold. And the real arcadey strategy of the game comes in where you are kind of shepherding or managing the civilization that you are currently destroying. Because, you might go and blaze up a farm if you have nothing better to do and take the resources from that. Or you could let the farm grow and let it send carts off to the city, which will make the city grow faster, and the cities are worth more points. So
it's a really neat
it's,
game, and it's a great sort of couch versus game where you and up to
or
3
co-op. It has
friends.
a co-op mode.
Yeah, I know. I haven't played so much of the co-op mode, but you can play against or with friends cooperatively or against each other on a couch, and it works really, really well for that.
Yeah.
So-
I compare it to a board game because of its stylistic elements, it looks like a board game. It's got very kind of tile and piece style graphics.
Yeah, it does remind me of that a little bit. But Close Castles, on the other hand, is far more abstract even than that. It's really just a small-ish grid, and you each have a castle in one corner of the grid, and obviously they're far too close. You have to take over the area in between. And the video, it looked like a really sort of frenetic action thing where you're drawing roads between the castles in order to take over territory. You're placing other types of buildings. It was a little unclear exactly what was going on because it's all quite abstract. It's actually, it reminded me visually a little bit of actually kind of like Threes. It's very, very minimal. It's a nice white with sort of highlight color scheme, but it looks like a really interesting departure from Threes because it looks like it's exclusively multiplayer. So I'm excited to play it on whatever platform it happens to come out on, and I know I'll be keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing Threes for the last week or so, off and on, because, as we recorded the last one, I hadn't really played it very much. But I actually have not managed to get past, like on my second play, I almost beat Shane's record and then haven't really gotten there since. But
I had the
On
same
your
experience.
second play, huh?
My highest score was probably my 4th or 5th game, and I haven't matched that again since. It's a little embarrassing.
If you'd like, I will share with you a generally winning strategy for Threes.
Go for it.
actually, fine. Give the people what they want, but I'm going to cover my ears because I want to beat this game on my own.
All right.
All right. And this is by no means assures a victory, but you want to build towards a corner in Threes. Oh, Nate's got his earphones out. He's he's too
actually heard what
noble.
you said.
All right. Pick a direction in Threes. It almost doesn't matter up, down, left, or right. And just do your absolute best to avoid moving any pieces in that direction. Because
that's actually a general rule for 2048 too, which I've played a ton of and beaten. So I kind of adapted that in this game as well.
there you go.
Cool.
Oh, another tip for Threes, for the Threes players out there. The new tiles that declare that they are coming in above the board. You can see what sort of a tile's coming in. You can tell a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or something greater than a 3 is coming in by the symbol. And they will only come in the rows or columns that have had motion in them. Like as you drag, if you've moved tiles in 3 columns, it could come in randomly in any of those 3 columns. But if you are doing a swipe that moves only 1 tile, the new tile will always enter in the same row or column as that tile.
I had not picked up on that, but that's actually really helpful. That might really help my game.
That makes sense.
I'm gonna have to go back and play that some more tonight. I'm really excited to talk about Transistor. This is a game that I kind of browbeat you guys into checking out because I know that I was really excited from day one when I heard that Supergiant Games, the developers of Bastion, were doing another game of any kind, really, and that it was a game that's a clear spiritual successor to Bastion, but it's got a completely different style of gameplay in many ways as well. So, but before we dive in and talk about that too much, have you guys played Bastion?
No, I've not actually. It's on my list. I think I actually own it.
It's been in some humble bundles, so I think pretty much everyone and their dog owns it at this point. And if you don't, let me know. I think I've got an extra.
I really liked Bastion, but it was a game that I picked up on the iPhone and then didn't finish. And having now played Transistor, alternately with a mouse and keyboard and with a controller, I could maybe see why. This game plays so much better that way. It's gameplay wise, it's very similar to Bastion in many ways.
I guess as the third of us, I also have to kind of confess that I never finished Bastion.
You don't even have to say that anymore, Reagan. We know you don't finish games. That's the whole reason you started this show.
I started this show to give me a reason to finish games, to give me an outlet for talking about games.
Has it worked at all?
It has. I finished Transistor.
Oh, you finished Transistor, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. Bastion was a game that I really admired, but once I got about 3/4 of the way in, I stopped enjoying. And I'm not sure how to really explain that. I just don't think I really liked its gameplay nearly as much as I've liked Transistor. But I felt like there was something there that I actually may go back and try Bastion again, having finished Transistor, because I think it's really, I really want more, and I may go back and play that game. But Bastion was entirely an action role-playing game. I thought it had gorgeous art. It had an interesting storytelling style that was a little bit different from most of what I'd seen. The fact that it used narration throughout, something we've talked about with other games, was something pretty unique about the game at the time, and still stands out. So Bastion was a really eye-catching and interesting indie game, but I didn't love its gameplay as much as some people did. This game, on the other hand, I think had everything that I loved about Bastion, but with a combat style that I loved even more. So where should we start?
I have a lot to say about the combat, but I think we should start by talking about the world and the story.
Yeah.
The game is a beautiful artistic style, but at its heart, the game is a game about a woman named Red, who is a singer who has lost her voice, and she lives in a city called Cloudbank.
Which is a great name for a city.
It is, and it's this incredible, ever-changing city that seems like it doesn't follow any physical laws. The city, as you explore it, you can tell that it's more like the rules that are followed in the city are like the rules of a computer and not like the rules of the real world. So it's not fully spelled out whether I don't think it's fully spelled out whether Cloudbank is some sort of Tron-esque, everyone's living inside of a computer simulation, or if it's just some sort of far future where physics has been conquered by technology.
Yeah, before we dig in too deep into what exactly is going on in the game, something really amazing about this game that I think it shares with Bastion is that it has a really interesting world, it has amazing visuals, and it has, at least somewhat interesting story, but it doesn't waste your time with the world building or the story. This is a game that allows you to discover just as much as you want to about the world, through going and investigating. There's terminals that you can go in and access and read game details. You can read backstories of characters, but that's entirely optional. The world building of the game is there for you if you want it, but this game lets that get out of the way and lets you focus on the gameplay and the beautiful artwork if you want that too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely part of the drive, at least for me, through the game was kind of figuring out what exactly is going on. What is this world? What's the driving force of the plot? Like, what am I trying to do? And the whole time you're just dealing with these crazy outside forces, the process and whatnot. And you're like, what exactly is the process? The process being like the name of some of the bad guys.
The game begins with an incredibly striking image. So visually, every moment of the game looks like a beautifully hand-painted. I would say it looks a lot like Gustav Klimt. Klimt, the guy who painted that painting The Kiss, and a lot of other famous sort of Art Deco-y things. They included a lot of gold in the paint. Do you know which artist I'm talking about?
I do.
Well, that's what really the style of the visuals of the game evoked for me. And in the very first moment of the game, Red, our sort of beautiful Art Deco maiden with beautiful red hair, is standing over the body of a man who's never named in the game, who's got a gigantic sword, the Transistor, through his heart. And this gigantic sword, when she pulls it out, becomes her companion through the game. It speaks to her. and inside it is embodied the function, the soul, perhaps, of the guy that she was standing over in that first frame. And her relationship with that guy, who's never named, is never fully explained. The moments leading up to that moment are never fully explained in great detail. But the mystery of that and of their relationship really kind of drives you through the game. So while we never hear Red's voice because she's lost it, the narration
We do
is
hear her
from the
voice
sword.
singing.
She can hum.
She can hum, that's true.
And there are a few times where, in memory, you hear her sing.
So the world of Cloudbank is really interesting. You kind of slowly discover a lot about it, but I think, Shane, you kind of hit the nail on the head in that it's a world that behaves like a computer. The thing that it most reminded me of was Cory Doctorow's Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
I'm obviously familiar with Cory Doctorow, though I don't think I've read that.
It's a novel of his that's about a world that's post-scarcity. And so what that means is, humans have been able to create systems where they can create anything. They've got complete mastery over matter. And there is nothing that is scarce anymore because everything can be created, by computer. And because of that, the economy essentially ceases to be an economy. The economy is no longer an economy of things or of money. It's an economy of opinion and regard. And I think that's essentially the world of Cloudbank. You can tell that they can create anything they want. There are polls about what color the sky should be today. And there are polls on the computers about, should we build a bridge, or would it be better if we left that bridge unbuilt to leave certain areas of the city inaccessible? And there's all these all the character bios have specific details in them about whether the person is the third most popular speaker in Cloudbank or something like that. So it seems to be a world where reputation and voting on every tiny element of the city, from the weather to the architecture, is what dominates, and there's no true economy of class or money. It's all about opinion and votes.
Yeah, it's a really fun way to handle the kind of backstory building or world building, where you will find a little terminal, open it up, and get to vote in this month's vote for what color the sky should be. Or, like you were saying, it's just kind of a fun, interactive way to kind of see what the world is all about. And yeah, everything is ranked, everything is commented on.
When you walk up to objects, they'll have, like, for example, you'll encounter a hammock, and the hammock has a stat meter above it that says, 13 ideas mulled at this hammock.
Yeah, my favorite one that I found was it's called the 100 stairs, and then below it says stairs 115.
Everything has these little details to them that really allude to a world without really spelling out what this world is actually like. And at times, this incredibly programmatic world, you get the sense that it was a little stifling. But you also get this, it's a great fantasy. It's a really interesting world that's only hinted at in fragments rather than really spelled out for you, which I think is a really interesting way of doing things.
Yeah, because while we've been talking about, we chose to talk about the story and the world and everything to begin with, it is a combat-driven game. I mean, you are moving from fight to fight to fight to fight.
Yeah, and like I said, that's the story is secondary to the gameplay, and that's a great
gameplay is fabulous.
And this game wouldn't work if the gameplay and the combat weren't super fun to experiment with. Before we leave talking about the world, what is happening in the game? What is the story of the game?
Well,
We've got
I
this
guess
interesting world. What is happening to Red and the world around her?
the world is being subsumed by the process, and I think the process is they appear to be these giant white robots with big red eyes, but they seem more likely to be, to me, sort of an expression of the underlying process that runs the world.
It's kind of a virus, I think.
Yeah, a computer virus was the best way I could think
It's been
of.
taken over by the Camerata. And that was actually, the Camerata, I think, to me, was the most interesting thing about the story of the game, was kind of exploring those characters, the villains, as they were. And
I had to look that word up, by the way.
no,
Camerata generally means a small chamber orchestra. It's a Latin adjective meaning chambered, or, confined in a chamber.
No, I also I was pretty sure I had heard the word before. The Camerata is specifically, there was I think the Venice Camerata. The original Camerata was a group of artists, of musicians specifically, who got together to basically set the rules for artistic taste in music.
Oh, that's really interesting, because that really does.
That's exactly what these characters were doing.
So because we won't go too far into the spoilers of the plot, but that's a really interesting comparison. The Camerata are the main villains of the game, and without explaining too much about their motives, they are a small group of people who are seeming to want to wrest control of Cloudbank from its citizens and their sort of voting in take it over and make those decisions themselves. And their weapon is the process, the sort of computer virus / aggressive robots.
Yeah, it seems to me that, Shane had said earlier that you can't tell if the entire world is a computer or not, but I think that might be at least partly the case, because they're able to generate these robots, this essential virus, from virtually anywhere that they want to.
Yeah, they spring right up out of the ground.
In a sense, it doesn't matter whether it's, everyone's living inside of a computer, or nanotechnology has taken over and programmable matter is, subsumed all of the world. It just, suffice it to say that the world is run in an entirely controlled, entirely systematic way, and everything is voted on. But the Camerata are kind of united under the idea that, when everything changes, nothing changes.
Mm-hmm. So we will talk more about the end of the game and some of the outcome of that after our spoiler break. But let's talk about the real meat of the game.
Gameplay.
The gameplay is
fighting.
The meat. It's a great combat game.
Mixing and matching and fighting and killing.
Pausing, planning,
and mixing and matching and fighting and killing and
swording
upgrading.
And stabbing and shooting.
Yeah, which, coming from my FTL obsession, I appreciated the ability to pause.
So the game's combat is pretty unique for a action RPG, and I think you could class this as an action RPG. You're only really ever controlling Red, and she only ever really has a single weapon. She has the Transistor, the giant sword that is also the narrator of the game. But the combat is still incredibly customizable.
Super deep.
Yeah, well, should we talk about how you gather these new skills?
The functions, yes. The functions are gathered up as, in a way, sort of the souls of the dead.
So functions are the skills or attacks that you have during the game, and you start with only 2. So the process of the progress of the game is mostly in terms of collecting new functions.
Yeah, and you can mix and match these functions. Each function can be used as a primary attack, or it can be used as a add-on, or what's the word? What's the
they have an active slot. They have where you can use them as an attack, an upgrade, or a passive slot.
That's what I was looking for. That's right.
Each one also uses a certain amount of memory, between 1 and 4 chunks of your memory, which I think you'll ultimately be able to upgrade to 16 memory slots.
So you've got your single weapon, but you can at any time have up to 4 different attacks equipped with it. Each one of those attacks, as you unlock the abilities, might be upgraded with 1 or even 2 additional functions stacked on it that would modify the initial attack, and sometimes in really cool ways. And also you've got those passive functions that sort of usually buff your defense or provide some other more passive benefit to your combat.
Yeah, and so that was definitely part of the fun of the game, is figuring out like, how do I play, or what way do I like to play, and what functions in what combination would work best. And fortunately, there's access points, which is where you're able to change these functions around virtually everywhere. They kind of act as the save point for the game, and so you can mix and match all the time. The one thing I did find frustrating, especially beginning of the game, is as you get hurt, your functions break, and you can be reduced down to just 1, or I've only died 1 time, but I've certainly had a lot of functions broken. It was always my favorite one.
I actually think that may be the most brilliant thing about the combat in the game, though.
And when I say frustrating, I don't mean I had a problem with it, like gameplay wise. I mean, it was just like, no, my favorite.
Yes.
Oh, it is really frustrating.
Yeah, it's always your highest value function that gets destroyed. It's the one that has the most points spent on it, the most memory spent on it.
Mm-hmm. So to explain that, you do have a health bar in this game, and as you take damage, it goes down. But when it reaches 0, you don't die. You lose one of your 4 active equipped functions. And you don't just lose it for the rest of that battle. You lose it until the end of your next battle. So if I've got my super awesome favorite function equipped in my main slot, and I'm wailing on robots with it, and then I take a sufficient amount of damage, I lose access to that function for kind of a long time, even past the next time I get to shuffle my functions around.
It feels like a long time.
Mm-hmm. So what that means is that as you take damage, you then have to really adapt and try other functions. And I think that's why this is the really smartest thing about the combat system in this game, is that it absolutely requires you to experiment with the different functions. And that really, I know that when I play games where you can customize your loadout, I'll find the one thing that works for me, and I will beat that loadout into the ground until it absolutely doesn't work for me any longer.
And that's exactly what I did in Bastion when I was playing that. I found one weapon that I thought was really effective, and I played it the whole time I actually was playing that game. And this game, the whole mechanic of mixing and matching these elements, the ability to use them to upgrade each other and try out completely different styles of play, was actually inspired by collectible card games.
Really?
Yes. I read an article that said that the initial design of this game involved a mechanic where these functions were sort of dealt to you in a hand at the start of a battle. And that survives a little bit in some of the challenge rooms that you see in the weird beach area, which I don't recall the name of. Back door.
The back door, yeah.
Back door, yeah.
Yeah. The back door was actually one of my favorite parts of the game.
Oh, yeah. Throughout the game, you can escape different areas into a sort of a little quiet beach that is sort of your hangout, your escape. And in that area, you can take on little challenge missions. And those are places where rather than you picking all of your functions yourself, they give you a specific challenge goal and a specifically assigned set of functions, and usually some additional challenge like stay alive for X number of waves of opponents, or kill all the process in the room within 45 seconds or within 1 turn or something like that. And actually, that really was a great addition to the game. It really made me try things and see the benefit of functions that I might not have otherwise been able to work into my main rotation.
Definitely.
Yeah, and they give you a kind of a reason to beat them. They tell you right out of the gates that this is 1 of 7 of the timing exercise, and you're like, well, I want to beat this one so I can get to the next one, because I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, training thing, and would skip it. But you also get extra experience or points that you level up with while you beat those. And I had a lot of fun with them, but some of them were a little tricky because it kind of forces you to think outside the box a little bit and maybe understand the game in a way that you had not been playing, which is what had kept happening to me. I too was kind of getting my golden setup, and then when it would break, I would do something else, but then as soon as it was back, I'd put it right back on. And these little challenges were a great way to kind of
I'm kind of
see
curious.
how the other side worked.
I'm kind of curious what some of you guys' favorite setups were. Like, did you have one that you kept going back to?
Well, so I don't know if I've said it on record yet, but I haven't finished the game yet. So you guys made it a lot further than me.
Ooh,
so
yes.
I know. Well,
You didn't have a TV, but you did get a chance to play it enough to have opinions.
Yeah,
so you're qualified. Go ahead.
I certainly feel good about the game, but I think you guys just probably have a lot more functions than me. But I really liked.
I unlocked them all, and one thing I don't know if you guys were aware of. Once I had completed unlocking them all, there's sort of a new game plus element called recursion. Once you beat the game, you can play through it again with procedurally generated new levels ad infinitum, and you're able to unlock a complete duplicate set of functions.
Oh wow! No, I didn't
Going
actually
through
know
that.
that about the
I've
recursion. New Game
only
Plus.
unlocked a couple of the second set, but if you're able to unlock a whole complete second set of the same functions and use them with themselves or with each other.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Sorry, so Nate, you were saying what your favorite functions were?
Yeah, I mean, the ones that I've been using thus far a lot is, Crash, which is one of the first ones you get, and it's really cheap. But I would add on the one that makes it area effect and bounce, I think is what it was. So it would hit a lot of different characters and bounce, or a lot of different bad guys, and Crash can stun them and kind of debuff them to a degree. So I would do that, and then Breach was probably my other favorite one. Any combination of those with like Load and Spark were the ones that I've been using a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are some of the most important ones. Crash, I think, is the most important. The first one you get, and it's the one that's most versatile in the game. It has a debuff element. It has a kind of a short range but relatively medium damage attack. When you use it as an upgrade, it adds stun to just about anything, and when you use it as a passive slot, it gives you damage resistance. So a lot of these things have a sort of a theme to them. They each have a little bit of a... When you use one of these functions, they have some details that tells you something about it. Like Crash, like you mentioned, it's described as disruptive and reliable.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also a former human or whatever these things are.
Crash is the main the narrator.
Yeah. And so they're these things that they do, the combat move is in some way kind of emulates the personality or the job or something about the human that it used to be.
And as you use the function in different ways, you unlock a little bit more of the backstory of the character. And that's something that I haven't explored enough yet, because there's still some that I haven't gotten all of the backstory from yet.
Yeah. And that is something that I have never seen in another game.
Yeah. In order to completely unlock the backstory, one of the things I love about the game, just one more way it encourages you to mix and match, is to unlock the complete backstory, you have to use the ability in all three ways: active, upgrade, and passive.
And you have to actually use it. You can't just equip it and then not use it. My favorite function in the game actually was one that initially I thought was almost useless. And you don't get it until a little bit too late in the game so I hope it won't be too much of a spoiler to describe, but there's a great function that you get pretty late in the game called Void. And initially I didn't quite get it. It cripples targets' defense and attack. And it doesn't do it very much. So when I first got it, I didn't quite get it and I didn't use it very much. But what I discovered, and it says it in the text of the description, so I don't know why I missed this when I first got the function, but it stacks 3 times. Most of the other functions, if you hit someone with it and then you hit them with it again within short order, it may do some extra damage, but it's not going to, any additional effects it has won't stack. But this one does up to 3 times. So if you get it just right, you can hit someone with Void several times in a row and then start hitting them with something else, and you just do insane damage. And I really thought that was a lot of fun to do.
That actually is a great one, and it combined so well with my favorite function, which was the one get. Get is just another one that I initially thought was going to be kind of useless, but turned out to be super fun when combined with other functions. Get is sort of a magnetic pull that, if you do it on its own, it deals a little bit of damage and pulls a target towards you. But if you combine
it can be really helpful.
Oh yeah, you can really control the battlefield. I was combining that with the Void and Load, which creates a bomb. So I had a sort of a routine that could decimate even like the bosses of the game in like just a handful of hits. There are some routines that you can load out in this game that I think are a little bit broken in terms of how much damage they do.
Well, perhaps. But one of the things that we hadn't touched on in the game is that obviously you can customize your loadout and you can, equip the functions into different slots. As you level up your character, you also get benefits in terms of additional slots that you can put things into and additional memory so that you can equip more functions at the same time. But as you level up, you also get something called limiters, which are essentially disadvantages that you can equip. And that's something that I thought was really unique about the game too. If you're finding the game too easy at any time and you would like to make it harder, you can do that. You don't have to go back and change some kind of kludgy, switch from easy to hard difficulty. You can actually go in and tune the difficulty of the game with limiters that
very specifically.
Yeah, they'll have effects like the process attacks with double strength, or the process spawns shielded cells. Cells are something that the process drop and you have to pick up within a short time, otherwise they'll respawn again. And there's other things that affects as well. There's all sorts of different limiters, and you can equip as many of those limiters as you want. So if you want the game to get harder, you can make it harder, and then you get a payoff in terms of leveling up faster if you have a lot of limiters equipped.
Yeah, the more difficult the limiter, the higher percentage increase you get to experience gained. So I bet a lot of people aren't out there just going, boy, I wish this game was harder, and turning on these limiters. I think the direct reward for making it harder
Definitely
is the main reason to do it.
Yeah, I turned on several of them just because I really enjoyed the challenge of the limiters, because they're not just, hey, make it harder in some ambiguous way. It makes it harder in a specific way that changes the gameplay a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones that I was playing with was a limiter called Priority that gives you an extra 4% level bonus as you level up. But the disadvantage is that if you die, rather than losing 1 function, you lose 2. And you can only recover 1 per access point. So it really trashes your functions to be using that, which forces you even more to explore the other functions and create off the beaten path elements. But there's some that are really fun that just sort of, multiply the number of the bad guys, the process, limit how much memory you can use, make them respawn faster, all kinds of stuff.
I thought that just everything about this game's combat system was so perfectly tuned, and the combination
and
of
tunable
functions, and customizable. The combination of functions, the limiters, the everything else that you could apply to your character and to the game to customize it really just made it absolutely awesome.
Yeah, and unique.
Yeah, and one thing that we didn't even really talk about was the gameplay style being a mix of real time and strategic, paused, and turn-based.
Yeah, which I always like that. two of my favorite games, obviously FTL, but also Fallout has that.
Oh, I didn't
element
make
to a
that
degree
connection,
as
but
well.
you're right. Fallout has that too.
Yeah, so while you can just be running around, spamming the attack button, you can also hit the space bar and pre-plan your attacks. And you have a limited amount of energy, so you can't just like pre-plan 100 different attacks.
You've got a sort of an action bar that fills up as you plan attacks.
Yeah, and the more powerful the attack, the more it takes up of that action bar.
One of my biggest tips for the game is that the jaunt, when applied to boost another attack, jaunt normally allows you to do a sort of a short teleport, but when you apply it to boost another attack, it allows you to use that attack during the refilling period for your
Yeah, that's sort of the downside of if you
the turn.
Yeah, if you hit that turn button and you go into this sort of paused mode where you can plan out several attacks in advance and then execute them really, really quickly, you pay for that in terms of after you've done that, there's a cooldown period where you can't do any actions at all. You can only run around. So that's a good tip, Shane. I didn't actually realize that you could tweak that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it allows you to keep fighting while there's the cooldown. Because that was something that kind of took me a little while to catch on, is that I would just hit spacebar virtually every single attack, do my plan, and then scurry around hiding from them until the cooldown went down, and then hit spacebar again, do my plan. And for whatever reason, it didn't really dawn on me that, you can just run around using your attacks as normal with virtually no cooldown. So depending on the battle, sometimes it's good to pre-plan it and do these things, and sometimes it's okay to just run in there like Baldur's Gate style, swinging around, swinging at all of them until they're all dead.
Yeah, I tended to use the turn on the sort of big bads, and then with the little guys, things like the snapshots and the bad cells, I tended to just go at them with guns ablazing without trying to bother with the turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tended to have a big area of effect vortex that just sort of sucked people in and damaged them over time, and that just dump that on as many bad guys as I could. But then during the turn recovery, I would back off, and I had the attack breach, which is a long-range attack that penetrates and can basically hit anything that you can see. And I used that along with the jaunt effect, so I could use it during turn recovery. And in addition, I used that with ping, which made it even faster. So you could just basically spam that at any time.
Fun combo. So yeah, tons of customization to the combat, and it had a lot of deep strategy while still maintaining a really good pace and being fast. Something you mentioned there, Nate, that actually kind of struck me as interesting. So you played this game with a mouse and keyboard.
Yes.
I played it both with a mouse and keyboard and with a controller.
And I only played it with a controller. So I would love to hear your thoughts on the different control schemes. This is a game that gives you both options and really invites you to try both because there's no setting for it. You can switch back and forth. Hit a key on your keyboard and suddenly you've got keyboard control. Hit a button on your gamepad and suddenly you're controlling with your gamepad.
Yeah, there are certainly games that I feel like, it's just disadvantageous to be on a mouse and keyboard. Like I played Octodad with a controller because I just, I felt like that was natural. But and any nowadays with any first person shooter, I tend to have a controller. But it's always been a very comfortable
first person shooter with a controller.
Ugh.
Well, because of my I know when I used to be all mouse and keyboard, but all the first person shooters I've been playing for the last 8 years have been on console. So I've lost that twitch movement other than Team Fortress 2. But it's always been a very natural feel to me, the mouse and keyboard gameplay. So I thought it was great. I thought it made a lot of sense. Hotkeys all over the place. I
actually
pretty well.
didn't play this with a mouse and keyboard at all. The very first time I picked this game up to play it, I had just installed it, but then I felt like going to bed, and so I grabbed my NVIDIA Shield, and so it just became a real natural thing to play it with a controller. By the way, it played great on the Shield. And So I played it the entire way through with a gamepad. I was 3/4 of the way through before I realized it even had keyboard controls. But this is a game that is super well optimized for both. They just did a remarkable job with that. I would say that perhaps when you're doing the turn planning, that maybe the keyboard and mouse would be a slight advantage in terms of just easy point and click. But then when you're doing the active, run and gun style of gameplay, I'd say maybe the gamepad would be a little bit preferable.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And Shane, you said you played it with both.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I managed to switch back and forth a couple of times, but personally, I did find myself early in the game preferring the mouse and keyboard, but later in the game, as I got more and more used to playing in real time and only using the turns when it was an emergency, I found myself playing more with the gamepad, because the biggest difference between playing with a mouse and keyboard and the gamepad is that you can customize this when you customize the controls, but on the keyboard, you are switching weapons with the numbers. You're switching, and then you're activating with the right click. But on the gamepad, there is no switching. You have all 4 buttons available to you at all times. In the settings, I did discover that you could set the game up such that pressing any of the numbers would immediately fire off that weapon. But I never actually played with that. I just sort of grabbed my gamepad.
Interesting.
That's interesting. I might try that. I mean, I have a controller as well that I could use, but usually once I've chosen one, I don't switch back and forth.
So this game came out about a month ago, and it got a fair amount of buzz. And I'm glad to say that I think it seems to have been a success. At least it seems like it from the gaming press that it got. I know that I picked this game up very shortly after it launched because I was so excited about it. And that's something that I've been trying to do more of. I think we've talked about this on the show before. I kind of have a habit with a lot of games of kind of trying to wait for a sale or wait for a bundle. And sometimes that's really good.
I think that's what a lot of people do. Unless it's a particular title that you're excited about, a lot of people wait until summer sale, which is coming up,
and that's
will have already been done by time this.
Oh my gosh!
Oh man,
the summer sale will probably be done by time this is aired. So
I can't
I've
wait.
got some
Maybe
Steam credits
Transistor
burning a hole in my Steam wallet.
Oh man,
yeah, I know. Transistor is going to go up for like $1.
I doubt that.
I'm gonna me too.
Brand new game. It's $20 right now though, which actually feels like such a bargain. I think this game is worth every cent of that $20. And if you have either of the platforms this is available on, this is right now available on Windows PC and on the PlayStation 4. And actually, Nate, what made you decide to get it for your computer instead of the PS4?
Lack of TV.
Oh, right. Oh, what a bummer.
I was going to get it on PS4. I certainly was. But yeah, just I didn't have a way to do that. So.
Plug your computer into your television and fake it.
I've considered that. I've never done that, but
one thing that I heard about the PlayStation 4 version that intrigued me is that when the transistor speaks, it flashes the controller in blue.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, along with its voice.
They do some kind of cool stuff with the controller. I mean, it's all like super simple, but in Infamous, because the controller has that big light bar right across the front of it. In Infamous, like spray painting was an element of the game, and you would hold the controller sideways and hold it like a spray can, and you would shake it, and the little microphone or speaker that's in the controller made it sound like there was a little spray can ball in there, and the vibrate aspect of it made it kind of feel like you were shaking a spray paint can. But they actually would make the beam, the light bar, the color of the spray.
Oh, that's neat.
You were doing. Yeah, and the most practical use, though, I have found so far of the light bar on the PlayStation 4 controller is like with Mercenary Kings that Molly and I play all the time. It just glows a different color, player 1, player 2. So right away, we'll put down the controllers for a little bit and come back and know right away whose is whose because it's glowing the correct color.
Also, I that seems like it would help me with my constant losing of my controller if it was blaring lights and making sounds.
I lost the so I set up the TV today and I lost the remote in like 4 minutes. I could not find it. It drove me crazy. I tore apart.
That's terrible.
It had fallen down underneath the couch.
And if it's
which
like
was
a
so
modern
classic.
TV, without that thing, you are out of luck.
Well, yeah, you got to get to HDMI one. You know what they need to do? This drives me crazy. Put a little button on your remote links with your TV. They can do that. It's the future. And there's a little button on your TV that you press and your remote beeps. Why doesn't that exist?
Why doesn't that exist? That's
It'd
crazy.
be so easy.
Yeah.
The only reason I can think of is that like because you can get other remotes and all that.
The remote control would cost 50 cents more, and that's not gonna happen.
Whatever. That's fine. Instead, people are velcroing them to the walls and like tying strings to them, and it's like, come on, we should be able to do this. I can go on my computer and make my phone beep anywhere in the world. I should be able to press a button on my TV.
I
and my
literally
remote control
haven't
should
seen my television's remote in months. I get up and go walk over to the TV like an animal.
beep. Yeah, come on. What is this?
What am I, a
50s?
farmer?
Yeah, come on. Train your dog to do it for you.
I know.
You should. She's
Yeah. So-
kind of smart.
Yeah, she's all right.
There you go, world. That one's for free. You guys, all the TV producers, production companies that listen to our podcast, you can have that one. I just want to see it happen.
All 0 of you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, this was a really great episode. Thanks for joining me. I had a lot of fun talking about this game, and I had a ton of fun playing it.
Are we not going to talk about the ending?
Oh, shit. You're right. Oh, we should talk about the ending. Hey, so now we're going to talk about the ending of the game.
Fire off the spoiler horn at least before we freaking
Yeah.
sign
Excuse
out.
me.
Do you wanna-
We're not ripping off the incomparable. We have our own thing. This is the spoiler break.
I am singing about what it's like to live in a computer.
I'm just going to leave all of that
My
in,
name
guys.
is Red.
You guys just need to be careful.
My
'cause I could just leave this
boyfriend
in.
is a large piece of cutlery.
I choose my words very carefully, Reagan. You can do what you want with them.
So what about the ending of the game? Do you guys have any thoughts about it? Because I think
I have
it
lots
didn't,
of thoughts about it.
it
You
didn't
don't
reveal
even
as
have
much
it.
as I was
So
expecting.
the characters are one of the most interesting aspects of the game to me, especially the Camarada. So there's 4 members to the Camarada, and you fight each one of them. There really are the bosses of the game. Well,
Isn't there that
actually,
one that kills
sorry,
himself?
scratch that. You fight most of them. There's the 2 guys that one of whom they kill themselves together. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
I think they're lovers.
Yeah.
Anyhow, you start off by fighting Sybil. She's the first boss, and she's sort of described as the eyes and ears of the Camarada. She's this woman with a parasol, and she's described as sort of a social butterfly who basically is their view, the Camarada's eyes into kind of the voting populace of Cloud Bank.
Yeah, she kind of came off as like the spy to me.
In a
Like,
way,
not many-
yeah.
Not many people knew that she would, she was in with all the, rich people and all that.
Mm-hmm. In this society that's clearly so democratically organized, like she seems like the social engineer of the group. And then you've got you go up against these 2 guys, Asher Kendrell and Grant Kendrell, or Kendrell, I guess. And the guy Asher is sort of described. I think he's the administrator. No, he's the other one. He's the guy with the cat. He's one of the only characters you interact with to any great extent.
Is he the one that you interact with? No, I'm thinking of Royce. Royce is the one that you interacted with through the little floating television screen.
That's right.
Okay.
Grant is the one who you never meet because he's killed himself by the time you get to them. But he, I think, is the one that created or that harnessed the process. And he was an administrator of the systems of Cloud Bank. And he founded this group. and he it seems like sort of there's these administrators that, and he's among them, and that's sort of one of the most computery elements of the world of Cloud Bank, is the idea that there's these administrators that keep the systems running.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things was that once you get past the point where he is dead and most of, it seems, the rest of the population of Cloud Bank is dead, by default, as you approach the terminals, you have administrator access as well. Because, well, presumably there's no one else to be the administrator, so why not you?
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to the question of like, what is the transistor? It's kind of described as a brush that paints the world, and it seems like it gives you it explicitly gives you read-write access to the world of Cloud Bank, the ability to kind of change things once you have full access to its powers.
Yeah, we're kind of speculating, but my perspective on it is that if this is a world where all decisions are made by vote, then if you can get a weapon that, you know, contains multitudes, and it's implied that the transistor contains far more than just the people that you see go into it, then perhaps that gives you rights to make changes. Anyway, kind of an interesting little aspect to it, but you have to really dig in the game to tweeze out these little world building mechanics, you know, how the world of Cloud Bank works. You do finally get to a really fun boss battle at the end of the game when you face off against Royce, who's the final member of the Camarada, who just has great voice acting. How would you describe him?
He's kind of quiet, and he wants you to really listen to him. He's got a lot of strong opinions, but he doesn't want to really raise his voice at all.
He's really actually a kind of an unsettling villain, really interesting. And then
that was beautiful.
That was a great impression. And the final battle is really interesting because he also has a transistor. You know, he has this sort of a copy of your transistor.
It seems to me in that final battle they go into the transistor, much like so many people so far have, and they're fighting within it. And the world, essentially, inside of the transistor is one of the bigger mysteries of the game that I think is not very well explained, if it's explained at all. But it's symbolized by people are shown standing in a field of wheat next to a barn.
There's a persistent metaphor in the game about people who have died going to the country, and I think it's sort of related to that.
Kind of reminds me of like what happened to our dog when we were kids, Reagan.
Yeah.
He went to a farm.
Yeah, all dogs do.
Oh, yours as well.
There's a lot of farms out there.
I wonder if our dogs
are
are friends, Nate.
Can I tell a funny sidebar story? I'll make it quick.
Absolutely.
About that. So when I was early teenage, maybe 12 or so, our family dog did go to live on a farm. And I kind of thought maybe my parents were making it up. It wasn't a farm, but it was like a farm-esque situation. But my older brother, who was really attached to the dog, we had to get rid of him because the dog had essentially gone crazy and was just unable to live in a normal household. So they had to do something with him. And until about a year ago, and so this happened about 15 years ago, maybe, until about a year ago, my brother believed and resented to a degree my parents because he thought that they had put him down and were lying to him, when in reality they're like, no. And they like had the paperwork to show like they actually found it was like a golden retriever rescue society that they brought the dog to. But my brother from like childhood thought that they had lied and always was like, my parents killed my dog, and only found out, and he's like 30 something now, and found out in his 30s because he's like, you killed my dog. And they were like, what are you talking about? And it all came spilling out for like, you know, however long he'd been holding it in, upset with them for killing his dog. I'm like, no, we actually did what we said. We took him to a...
quite the opposite. I spent the other day, Father's Day, with our dad, our dearest father, Reagan.
Uh-huh.
And
no. Is there a story here that I don't know about?
There is.
Oh,
so
no.
Do you remember us ever owning a dog named Fido?
No.
Good movie.
No.
Because we did.
No, I remember Mood. That was our first dog.
No, before that dog, we had a dog named Fido that had to be put down.
We did? I had no
Yes, we
idea.
did.
How old
Yes,
were
we did. And I couldn't have been that old. We would have been about 8 years old.
I don't
Well,
have
or
any,
seven or
no,
8 years
younger than
old.
that. I can't, because we got moved when we were. Geez, you've blown my mind. I'm gonna have to totally figure this out now. All right, that's something for another podcast. I had no idea. That's hilarious and also messed up. So to conclude our discussion of the ending of Transistor, it's got this great
Speaking of
boss battle at
dogs,
the end. Yeah.
the worst enemy in this game, I don't know if you guys agree with me, was the freaking
Fetch.
dogs.
Oh, my
Those things show
God.
up on the if you're playing this game and you've already skipped past the spoiler break, I don't know. There's no help for you here. It's too late to give gameplay tips. But if you see a dog-shaped creature appear on the screen, just go all out at it. There is nothing else you can do. You have to kill that thing right away. Otherwise, those things are just too fast. If I have one gameplay thing that I'll complain
lost all
about,
my functions
they
to
are
that dog.
too strong. Those dogs. They're called fetches, I think, in the game.
And as you play through, they get upgraded, so they'll be like fetch 3.0, and it's like, oh god damn it, they upgraded those things again. Yeah, they are the most irritating process in the game. But I don't know, they're I think it's good because there's actually not a lot of others that really come after you aggressively. A lot of the other robots or process kind of hang back a little more and attack you more indirectly, where those things are real chargers. They come right at you.
Yeah, and if you is it the weeds that'll heal things?
Oh, yeah.
And so that was my first encounter with the fetch
I didn't realize that the
dog.
weed things were healing the enemies until I had already beaten the game once and had started playing it again.
See, I realized it because the stupid dog, I would get it down to like 40 health, and then it would run away, and it'd be like, good, it's gone for a second. That gives me a second. And it comes back full health, and I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. So I'm just being bit by this dog while I'm popping around trying to kill these weeds. Obnoxious.
Awesome.
Not awesome, Reagan. It was not awesome at all. That
You're
thing
right.
was awful.
Those things are horrible.
When you speak, I hear silence. Every word a defiance. I can hear, oh, I can hear. Think I'll go where it suits me. Moving now to a country with everyone, oh everyone, before we all become one. You tell yourself that
And on that note, anybody have any last final thoughts to leave us with?
lying down.
No, I was a little concerned. Like you said, $20 is worth it, and that I'm so jaded at this point from especially through Steam. Like I'll still spend high dollar on console games because you have to, but for computer games, I'm so jaded by the bundles and the Steam sales that $20 feels like a lot sometimes. But within the first scenes, you can just tell how much work was put into this game and how beautiful it is, and the gameplay is so slick. I think it's absolutely worth it.
Absolutely.
Definitely. The production value is fabulous. The art is beautiful. So much of it is just so carefully drawn and painted. It's very, very beautiful.
Yeah, we talked about Monument Valley recently and how pretty much any moment in that game you could print out and frame. I wouldn't go quite so far with this game, but I'd say that a lot of the art of the game has that quality. In fact, one complaint about the game is that the character model for Red, which as I understand was actually done as a 3D model and then sort of turned into a variety of sprites and kind of hand touched up. So Red and all of her animations are actually hand drawn in a sense, but they're based on a 3D animated model. Red is a gorgeous character model. And if you really squint at her, there is a ton of detail going on in every moment, every animation that she does, down to the way that her, dress moves when she uses her sword. But it's too small. She's really small on screen. And if you're playing on a screen that's anything less than a gigantic 1080p television, you're going to miss a lot of the cool detail that's going on with her animations. So if you can play this on a large screen and sit close up, that's what I would recommend.
Just appreciate the beauty, man.
Yep.
Gorgeous game.
Yeah. I think my final thought on the game, really, I had something that I wanted to say. I keep doing this. I'm very sorry. I'm an editing nightmare.
Is non-existent.
My final thought is just get this game, guys. It's a good game. You should play it.
Just get this game.
Just try it. You'll like it. If you don't like it, just tell me and I'll give you an extra $20 maybe so you can make your rent money.
Just try it.
Check it out.
Just try it.
All right.
Check it out.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining me on this episode of The Short Game. This was actually a game I've been really looking forward to talking about on the show, so I'm glad we got a chance.
This is one of my favorite games
We're
we've
well
played.
aware, Reagan.
Yeah.
I will say how much I enjoyed this game?
How much?
I had work this morning. Last night, I beat this game, and I stayed up late to play an extra 2 hours of playing it again the second time. That's how much I love this
awesome.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely a ringing endorsement. I think I'm going to try it with a gamepad just to see what...
check it out.
Yeah.
So, of course, you can pick this up on Steam. You can pick it up on the PlayStation 4,
ESN.
and you should do that. So thanks for joining us for this week on The Short Game. You can check out our show on Twitter, which is @_shortgame, or we're going to be listing all of the links for things we may have talked about during the show at our show notes page. Where can people find the show notes, Shane?
TheShortGame.net. Wait, you said Shane.
You can find the show notes at theshortgame.net.
That is exactly right. And you can find me on Twitter @RaganK. I spelled that a little funny. It's RayGank. How about you guys?
Raygank.
You can find me on Twitter @NateSTL. And can I plug our friends thing again?
Oh, naturally.
And I want to plug a good Let's Play series called Game Plus, which I think you actually said in its native form earlier in the podcast, Shane. But it's called Game Plus. Two of the funniest people I know play old and new games. It's totally worth a watch.
How do you get in cover?
A.
B.
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 Get out of my way, I want in the elevator. That's my terrible Batman voice.
That was a Batman voice? I thought you were just like a dog or something.
Rachel!
Where is she?
Where is she?
They are really good. And Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me at 8bitshane, the number 8, BITSHANE.
Awesome.
And what's the email address for the show?
Our show has an email address. It is info@theshortgame.net, and we love to hear from you. You can also drop us a line in the contact form on our website. And so we really appreciate any feedback that you guys want to give, particularly if you have games that you think we might want to cover and that you'd like to suggest, or if you have comments about the games that we've already played. We love hearing from you. So thanks so much for joining us for this week on The Short Game, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Cool.